A bunch of tracks that didn't make it to official releases, and still dope enough to wanna put it on repeat quick. So peep this, throw us in your CD player. Oh, I forgot the non-existent, dog. Shit has changed major. So scratch that, throw it in your iPod player. Like, my God, he right hard, I ball on you figures. Yo, they throw backs, give it away for free. Like, oh boy, go and make noise when you hear. Hope you jump for joy. I'm optimistic, glass ain't half empty, it's half full. Hopefully by now you know me from the Jazz Council, that was years ago. So I brought more fire to doubt dudes and playing by house rules. I lay back like a couch dude. I'm that dude that makes his own beats, writes his own rhymes, records his own shit. Probably why it takes so much time to put out an album. Man, I'm always behind schedule. Ain't hungry, I just always got my plate full. Try to digest all the topics that I'm spitting. You need to sit back and actually take time to listen.
What is going on, guys? Happy Friday. Welcome to Wartime Optimism number 50-something. It's a Paintover day. It's going to be a good day. I am looking forward to it. Okay, let me get myself a little bit organized over here. How is everybody doing? I hope well. How was your weeks? All of that fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed yesterday with Patrick. That was a lot of fun. Demetrius, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. We have two videos to look, or two paintovers to watch today. One from Jafar Vekovic. I have no idea how to say that last name. My apologies, Jafar. A landscape study, and then from Luis Tornell, we have a astronaut image that he made for Fabio's competition a couple of weeks ago. And I think that they're both going to be fun ones to watch. They're like two kind of very different images in general, and really cool. And it was a lot of fun painting over them. So let's find my Cintiq. We're going to look at Jafar's first. All right, so this is the image that he sent me. Oh, Luis, what's going on, buddy? Good to have you here. Jean-Marc, Milan, good to see you guys as well. Thank you for being here. Okay, so we have this is the image that Jafar sent. In the email that he sent me with it, all it said was that he was doing a landscape study. Okay, so I didn't have much to go on as far as like what he was trying to do. But and by the way, if you guys want me to do a paintover, DM me somewhere or just email me at mike@droki.com so I can keep track of everything. I love doing these. I hope you guys enjoy them as well. If you have anything, I'd be happy to do it. So one of the things in this image, the first thing is this was the raw render that he sent along. And you can see if we flip that on and off, you can see it's been integrated really, really well into the background. Like even if we zoom in, like we know where the edge is, but you really can't see it. The colors have been corrected pretty evenly across the board. I feel like everything fits together really nicely. And I think like all the scattering that he did looks really nice. So my hat's off to you there, Jafar. So I don't really have anything to say as far as the integration goes, but when I was looking at it and thinking about it as an image, there's a couple things that kind of came to mind. One is that in the back plate, we have kind of all of this atmospheric perspective, which is absolutely lovely, and that kind of stops as soon as you get to the plate. So I felt like the atmosphere needed to be brought down into the image a bit more. And the other thing is that these kind of three stones to me felt like the main focal point of this image, or what should be the focal point of this image, and I wasn't quite sure that we were getting that. And so my first thought was like, oh, okay, so what I would have done probably is maybe lowered the camera a little bit and brought out these silhouettes, was kind of the idea I did. Should we look at the finish? So here, this is where we started, and this is where we're going to finish. Obviously, it's gotten very soft at this point, just from like painting quickly. But I feel like we got it to a point where, whereas before we kind of know what to look like, now we have all of like the values kind of pointing us at these three stones. And I did it a little bit heavy-handed. I probably in 3D would have brought in a bit more atmosphere. I might have brought the plate in just to render it at the same time. But then I probably would have had something casting a shadow off here to the right so that we kind of get this dark foreground, and kind of played with some of those types of things. But let's watch the painting. to see kind of how I got here. Let's see. Doop. And is that playing on your guys' screen? It is. Oh, and while that's getting started, so the first thing I did was crop it right away. I feel like you could, if you wanted to keep more of the whole scene in there, I think you could adjust the camera probably. Maybe a bit longer of a lens so that the stones come a little bit more forward. But because I didn't want to do it that way, I did just kind of crop it to kind of bring focus, and then kind of shifted things around. I'm moving things just a little bit and just quickly painting out that hard line that I used. Let's get some tunes on whilst we have things going here. There we go. Oh, let's turn that down just a bit. Something like that I think should be good. Okay. So yeah, just kind of recomposing everything very quickly just by cutting and moving and then painting some masks to kind of hide some edges and the like. And again, I think that like this is a quick hack way of doing that. I think that what I would advise would be to do that with the camera. And so that these types of things all fit just a little bit better and will be easier to edit and post. Excuse me. Just tweaking some colors, turning down some like the bright highlights of green, but bringing the overall green up just a bit. And yeah, so once these all get in place, which I think that's about in place now, then I start kind of painting in kind of the mood that I saw. Obviously, I took a very kind of moody approach on this guy, as I want to do on this channel. And the original image was kind of like, even though we had atmospheric perspective and kind of haze in the background, the image itself was quite bright. And I think if you wanted to keep it that way, I think you definitely could, but you could still use some like less heavy-handed techniques between camera and just like a more subtly controlled atmospheric perspective to bring out the silhouettes of these rocks so that they read against their background. Right now, like if you look at it in black and white of the original image, everything kind of blends together. So especially from a value standpoint, I think you really want to pull these out so that they're immediately legible and like a very quick read. And so yeah, I think I really like this image. I like this idea of like doing a big open landscape. I feel like I don't know if Jafar is an ArcViz artist or a concept artist or what, but at least coming around from like an ArcViz perspective, it does feel like we never get to do these like big wide open spaces without any architecture in them. ArcViz, way to go, Mike. But I do look at this, I'm like, oh, that was probably a lot of fun to do. You have some nice like ridges kind of built into the terrain that you scattered things on, which is nice. It's not all a flat plane, which I feel like you see a lot of the time because it's easier. I think you did a really, really good job on all of your 3D for this. So well done. And yeah, I think just some like pretty simple tweaks at the end of the day. I did this Paintover in 20-25 minutes or something like that. And this, to be honest, is like my favorite part of the whole process. All the scattering in 3D is like a means to get to this part of things. But I think that just thinking about what story you want the image to tell is a good way to like kind of guide some of those decisions. And when you're looking at something like this, I think if you wanted these to feel smaller as they did in the original image, you could definitely get away with that. But you would want to light it and kind of compose it such that they feel a little bit more privileged or important, or something feels more privileged or important, so you can look at an image and say, this image is about X. You know, for me, I basically chose those 3 stones. You could do a lot of things. If it was about the whole space, you would. The original image with like the entire crop there, one of the things that gets lost in that situation, I think, is there's like kind of no overall structure to the composition. And so then maybe you bring out some more definition in the mountains, or you'd want to bring in some more lines and not let everything kind of hide away. Here I'm just painting out some of those like very bright rocks because they brought a lot of attention to themselves in a place that I didn't want attention to go to, because as is somewhat obvious, hopefully, I'm wanting everyone to look at these 3 rocks, not to the bottom left. The bottom left kind of foreground rock is just kind of a placeholder, so to speak. The other thing that I thought was cool, but I don't actually paint, and I don't know why I said I thought, the one thing that I'm thinking is cool right now that I could have done, or that you could do, would be is that if these 3 kind of like not man-made stones, but clearly they were turned up by man on their ends, if that's like a pilgrimage site, you could do like a worn dirt path kind of leading up towards them, which could be kind of cool. As though a lot of people walk there. We did that on that purple image from a while ago. We added kind of a path and like a pilgrim into it to give it a sense of scale and story. But it would change the story, and there is something also kind of cool that like these 3 cool stones are standing in this field, and even though they're clearly like they were important at some time, they're not something that people go to now. Maybe I like that a little bit more now that I'm kind of talking my way through it. But just ideas, things that you can do as quick tests, right? And like, if I had that thought whilst doing this painting, I probably would have painted like a little line in there, a little path in there really quickly just to look at it and see what's going on there. What is going on here? Whenever YouTube gives me like the big warning triangle, OBS says things are going fine. I'm not sure what YouTube's saying. Guys, if you can still hear me and see me, please let me know. I'm not sure if it's working or not. I hope it is. And if it's not, we will try and deal with it. My internet's been like really all over the place these days. Let's have a look-sees on the phone and see if everything is going. Okay, Milan and Demetris, thank you. Seems to be things are going. Good to know. And so yeah, so this is almost finished. I probably went a little bit overboard with the fog. Obviously, like that's painted pretty heavily. What you could do, it depends on the mood. The amount isn't necessarily too much, but probably not so heavy-handed. And in a second ago, you saw me kind of paint out all of the mountains just with kind of flat colors, and then I decreased the contrast of that quite a bit, or the opacity of that layer quite a bit. But the idea was just to simplify the background, because all of the kind of high frequency noise, not noise, but texture and stones and all of that in the image pulled a lot of attention to them. And so by kind of flattening and bringing all of those levels together towards one color, it lets them sit further back as not important. And here I'm just cleaning up the silhouettes a little bit, making sure that they read nice and dark all the way around their profiles, so they sit out nice and clean. And yeah, and I think that's about it for this guy. It is time to put the window ACs in. It's got what? It is 86 degrees in my office right now, which Celsius is, I don't know, 30 or so. It is very, very warm. I think it's time that the ACs come out up here in Maine. Especially my computer's been rendering kind of non-stop for the last 30 hours. One of the blue screen or black screens of death that I've been getting happens like when a render's like halfway through or some way through. Like I've been setting renders to go and then going to take a nap or something like that and coming back and finding that it just restarted. It's been a nightmare. So my computer's been more or less constantly re-rendering for the last couple of days, which, you know, is just throwing heat into this thing like you would not believe. So yeah, so that is my Paintover for Jafar's piece. Jafar, thank you for sending me this, and great work on the original image. I hope at least some of the ideas that I had for it are helpful or insightful or anything. This was a lot of fun to do. I think you did a great job with the start. Oops. And yeah, I think one of the things, if we look at this in black and white, you see how the stones kind of like immediately like disappear as a whole. Versus here, they're still very present. That's, I think, at the end of the day, like the most important to me part that you could do. Is just getting them to stick out a bit. But beautiful, beautiful work, my friend. Thank you for sending it to me. I enjoyed painting over it. Okay, number 2 for today is going to be Luis's astronaut image from... God, I mean, they've done, I think, 9 competitions now, Fabio and Jason have, which is just insane and awesome. And the quality of work week after week has just been phenomenal. And this is a great example of that quality of work. I love this image. I love kind of the story and the play. There's like, it's a image that when I try to describe it, there's like a playfulness to it, right? Like, dude's got his floaty swan on, right? But like otherwise very serious, and she's got like a tutu and the giant helmet. I don't, but there's also like a slight creepiness to it, like he's not supposed to be there. I don't know what the full story is, Luis, but I really like it. Like, I'm okay with not knowing those sorts of things, because I think that making you wonder in an image is a good thing. So before we get to the Paintover time lapse for this guy, I do have a couple of comments. So you sent me like a couple different versions. Oh, and it's not open. You sent me the full Photoshop file, which, let's see here. This guy, which we will let open up, because I would like to applaud you, Luis, on how beautifully organized your Photoshop file is. It's color coded. It is, labeled. I looked at it and I'm like, I don't know if you did that just because you were sending it to me, but I never have files that look like this. Couldn't I use? Oh yeah. Look at this. We got the extras, color correction, effects, light adjustment, local adjustment, space render, utility stuff. Not the point of a Paintover Friday, obviously, to talk about Photoshop organization, but that is neat. If I had to go in and like edit this for like work, because if I worked with you guys at Keelograph or something like that, I would be just so thrilled to see this instead of my typical Photoshop file of just like tons of disorganized layers. The some are copy merged. It's just a mess. And so my hat's off to you at that. I will say, I looked at this folder at one point today, this Cryptomats folder that just renders out, it appears it renders out just a little alpha for every little thing. This is a nightmare. Luis, how would you find something in this? If I wanted to just select the astronaut, I don't understand how you would find it. That's chaos. That is chaos to me. And I see that you hit it well inside of your very, very clean Photoshop file is this Cryptomat folder, but that makes me not very excited about Cryptomat. Because I just wanted to like quickly select him and select her, and I'm like, oh, I'm not dealing with it. I'm not looking for that through all of this, and there's probably a bunch of different layers I need to find. But we'll look more into it later. But either way, also work on the Photoshop file. You also sent me, however, a couple of process images. And the first thing when I look at this was like, I like the color, I like the mood, I like the story. There are some compositional things that I just right click on top of it. I'm not even looking at that. To see all the layer names? Oh, God, no. Lost my train of thought there for a moment. Oh, and Oleg. Glad to have you here. And Jafar, you can rewatch it at the beginning. Yours was a great image to work on. Thank you for sending it in. Okay, so back on track. It's Friday. The brain's all over the place. Who needs a nap? Okay, so you sent me some like the process images, which I really liked. I'll just give you the name of. Okay. Well, now we're gonna check just to see. You need to have all the layers on. No, I'm not. This is a bunch of craziness. We'll deal with it later. Maybe I'll have you show me how you use it to see if it will make sense, Luis. Anyways, back to the point at hand. So this was like your first like blocking image, kind of getting things into place. And between that and like your initial like light study, which I can't stand these. They're so hard to work with. Let's look at this is such a better representation of the composition than white renders are. Anyways, the kind of big things that move, right, is that she kind of got bigger and closer to the camera and he got further away, right, which I like because in the initial block out they're kind of both the same size inside of the image. And so like making her bigger, going with like I'm guessing maybe a wider camera. I'm guessing a wider camera that's closer to her is how you achieve that. I think is the almost the exact thing I'm gonna say, which is I think that you could have done that and you could have done that more than is right here. There's still the foreground's really cool. However, we lose like it's compositionally it doesn't quite work. And we lose it in this image to where now we just have like a random green line down here, which you do crop out in the square version, which I think is actually more successful than the full composition. But I think that I think that she can still be bigger and he can still be a little bit smaller, because they're both still kind of hugging the edges of the image without, even though she's bigger. He's kind of visually more important, if that makes sense. I'm not sure how well I'm explaining myself. They still feel like kind of like visual weight-wise equal. I'm not sure if this is about the woman or girl in the foreground or about the astronaut. And I feel like you really want to select one or the other, and really make that the strong point. The other thought that I would have before we start painting, because this I kind of do, but only to some degree because it's a hard thing for me to fix, at least in Paintovers, is right now like our horizon's kind of like right here, which is pretty close to the middle of the image actually. And I think on top of bringing the camera forward and wider to this, I think I also would have brought it down so that we're really looking up. Or I would have straightened the verticals. I would have either exaggerated that or straightened them back out. Just to kind of make like a strong choice on that one way or the other. I think that we could have just taken basically everything that you did from block out to your final rendering and just gone a little bit further is effectively what my advice is. And one thing I did not mention, which I meant to mention, which is that your post work is absolutely lovely. Going and like, especially when you flip it on and off, you can see that like, you know, obviously like the foreground takes quite a bit of attention. It's kind of hard to see what this is about, and everything that you did in post really kind of like makes it beautiful, but also focuses the viewer at what you want to. And then yeah, I'm always curious, guys, what's your opinion right now? Would you guys rather see where we end up with this guy, or do you want to see me get there? I'm never sure like whether I should show you what I did or whether we should just wait and get there all together. I'm not sure how long this delay is between me and you, but we'll give you a couple seconds to kind of make an opinion on that one. Stefano, thank you for subscribing, my friend. I appreciate it. Assuming that you subscribed right now. I have no idea how YouTube works its magic. Luis says, wait. Then wait, we will watch me paint. Let's get, I'd wait for everyone else to chime in, and I am curious on everyone else's opinion on that. But because this is Luis's image, his say goes. So let's switch to, yes, and then let's start playing. And I painted on this one for about the same amount of time, like 20, 25 minutes, something like that. And the end result, as you would imagine, because I'm going to move things pretty drastically, is much rougher than the final, but hopefully, or than your final version, but hopefully it gets kind of those ideas across visually to some degree. And so here I'm just kind of moving things around. I opted, instead of dealing with all of the cryptomats, just to deal with, the depth layer and select things that way, which especially for painting is it's faster at the very least. But yeah, just kind of, and I think I would have turned her. Like right now, she's kind of, you'd think that she'd be facing directly at the astronaut that's in her room. I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. But she's kind of privileging the camera a little bit, which I think, huge conjecture here, but it feels to me like that's a little bit, it's kind of like maybe breaking the fourth wall in film type idea, right? Like it feels like she's acknowledging that the camera's there by being turned towards her just a little bit. And so I would probably turn her, and I'm going to start to like silhouette her a bit more, just so that we're focusing on the astronaut. I chose to pick the astronaut for this guy because it seemed like more of the focus point. What's going on? Oh. Windows are going. The window is open, trying to cool this thing down. But yeah, I would turn her so that she's facing the astronaut and away from the camera just a little bit more. I think that'll help the story just a little bit. Milan, thank you. It's a random element, but you can see when you open this. Okay. Yeah, I need to look into it. I know a lot of people really love it. But when it comes down to like perfect selections versus efficiency, I always kind of slide towards efficiency, which is why I like the multi-mats. Like for this, I don't need like separate selections for every object, but I would like to be able to grab maybe the bookshelves for that painting, or like the astronaut as a whole, that kind of thing. But yeah, so just kind of making her bigger again, and I did pull the horizon down a little bit, but obviously I don't do anything to fix the actual perspective of things beyond scaling, because that would take forever, and I'm not that good at painting yet. So just kind of working down and dirty as I am wont to do. And the other thing, every time you see it go black and white, I'm still working in color, I'm just looking in black and white. So we do end up with a color image. That kind of makes sense. Yeah, the colors aren't as pretty after painting, but what can you do? There's the blue light. So there's like blue light coming in from the door on her back, and then there's like cyan light bathing him that doesn't appear to be coming from his headlamps, which appear to be white, which is how we get pink on her jacket. But then we kind of have this like blue bleed everywhere and no real source of that blue light. I don't fully get rid of it, but I do kind of try to tone it down. And this might have just been because I was painting and like thinking through it, but I feel like if you want to have that like very strong kind of like blue spotlight on him, its source should be not necessarily visible. It doesn't need to be a light that you can see, but I would like to know where, like understand where it's coming from. So yeah, and Milan, I can't imagine that they don't have that functionality, right? Especially for dense scenes, you want groups of objects, not singular objects. So you can see the change is like subtle, but making her bigger, and I actually end up cropping towards the top here, to kind of like further figure out that the astronaut, moving him a little bit away from the edge, and so he has a little bit more of a central location within the image, is saying like he's the point of the shot. Everything else is kind of secondary. But yeah, there's the blue light on him, which you can see now, which is kind of like, where's that light coming from? It's spilling all over the floor. I'm assuming that it was kind of some either hidden spotlight or something like that's filling him. But I feel like if it was on him, you'd either be able to see the volumetrics from it like you can on the headlights, or you'd be able, it wouldn't be as strong of a presence on him. Just a thought. Visually it looks good, but I do think it takes a little bit. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a better question actually to ask of someone who doesn't make images. For me, when I look at it, I'm like, I don't understand it, and so I'm kind of distracted by it. But that might be something that somebody else would completely not even notice. What I'm doing here, and actually, did I finish doing that? I'm gonna go back just a second. And so this is also important. I want like a very clear like read of his silhouette, especially because I've chosen to make him the subject. I want to make sure his silhouette reads really clearly. So I'm darkening some of his legs, which would make sense because they're below the silhouette and they're a little bit overdone. And then using like the background, and I paint out the entire background here just for ease, but the idea is just for the levels to kind of make sure that we don't have detail behind him that's interfering with the read of his silhouette. Oleg. I don't think it could be coming from the spotlight, because then that cutout around the spotlight would be brighter, I would expect. And I don't think this being like dusky with any type of artificial light on the inside, there would be no meaningful light coming in through the outside. The light on the back of the helmet, I'm assuming, is coming from a different room, is kind of how I interpreted it. Here you can see me, I cropped I cropped out mostly ceiling, but I took it down just enough to cut off of her helmet, so that there's not a tangent there, but also there's always, and I think I've said this before on these paintovers, and I definitely have said it before historically, if you crop out something, you're kind of saying this is not the most important thing. So she's important, she's in the foreground, she's huge inside of the image, but she's not the point of the image, right? And so it doesn't affect like her legibility, but I think it affects how you read the image as far as what's the important things. What am I supposed to be looking at? You're supposed to look at him first, and obviously her as well, but she's not the point. That's the idea behind that, or at least my thinking behind it. Yeah, I think if it was moonlight, it would be softer. Right, like moonlight, when you see a moonlight in your room, it's usually because there's no lights on at all. And if you so much as turn on any light, it becomes very hard to actually read the moonlight anymore, right? Just because of the relative brightnesses of things. So it feels too strong to be moonlight. I think it's just cool mood lighting. But on the astronaut itself, it feels like it's there and it's not on the rest of the scene. If that makes sense. So one of the things that I'm kind of doing here, with a moderate amount of success, not a great amount of success, is continuing to work on his silhouette, but also I kind of color corrected that cyan out and then applied it as like a local color on... Put all that in quotes. It's done very roughly. But with the idea being that like the white swan is actually like a bright teal floaty swan. And so all of like the green coming from that is reflected light. It's a stretch. But it does kind of, I think, hopefully read a little bit cleaner. I don't know. And then we bump the saturation back up and I kind of undo it. But at least there's like a fall off at this point where it's more cyan around the swan floaty ducky guy. Is that the end of this? That's all. This is about where I got to. I don't know if I do anything else or not. Oh, we're starting over. Yes. So let's look at the square one. I do, however, one of the things you could have done, and you can see these little guys, if the camera was super duper low, you could have kept Yoda in somehow. I totally understand and agree with why this foreground gets darkened through post, but then you lose Yoda, to where you could just kind of, like, at that point, like, that looks better to me. But from the square image, which has that cropped out anyways, that's kind of the changes that I made. Disregard most of the color adjustments. It's more like the composition that I think is how I would have done things differently, for better or for worse, who knows. That is up to every individual artist to decide. But essentially, taking all of the instincts that you had while kind of like working through this project and just saying, go, if you did 100%, do 110%, right? Like, it's just taking things that you already noticed between block out and render and just exaggerating them a little bit more so that it's just a very, very quick read. I'm taking a stance. Which one's more important? You just as easily could say that she was more important than him. In which case, he probably still would have gotten a little bit smaller, but he would have stayed over on the edge of the frame. She would have come over, and then all of like the silhouette stuff would have gone to towards her. And I'd probably still say move the camera down a little bit. For me, personally, move the camera down and leave 3-point perspective, or leave the camera where it is and then fix the verticals. But yeah, them's my thoughts. Luis, thank you for sending me an image to Paintover, and beautiful, beautiful work on this. I really, really enjoyed painting this one. These ones are the most challenging for me. Like, I get scared. It's polished. It looks very beautiful to begin with. And then I feel like whenever I try to get started on these, I'm in my head, I'm like, well, you're only going to mess this up. This isn't going to get better from here. And so I'm still learning how to deal with that. But the idea is that using it as a tool, do I like this better or do I not? Okay, if you do, then you can go and you can re-simulate these things pretty quickly in 3D. And then make it again beautifully. Martin, good to see you, my friend. Welcome, and sorry you're late. We did a cool landscape one before this from Jafar. It's also a very beautiful image. And we're actually like just kind of wrapping up. We're about done for the day. I've got to get these windows back open and the AC installed because the temperature is just climbing. It's 88 now. This office too hot. What I need to do is water cool the GPUs and put the radiators like outside. That's what I want. But for those of you tuning in late, this was the first one that we did. We started with this image from Jafar, this kind of landscape study that was beautifully done. And I made it widescreen and contrasty and moody. But if you want to know all of my thoughts, go back and have a look. And this is Luis's image. This was the start of things. And I made it less beautiful, but maybe compositionally a little stronger to me, or a little clearer for me in my book. But a little sloppy. What can you do? You win some, you lose some on that part. Guys, thank you for being here. I hope everyone's doing well. A big cheers to you. This warm weather is really making the cold beers taste better and better every day. Ooh. I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe weekend. People's countries and homes and towns are starting to open up, which is promising. But please continue to be safe. We are not out of the woods yet. So hope everyone is staying sane, enjoying things as they relax a little bit, but still being mindful. You gotta take care of one another. That's all I got. Monday, what am I gonna do Monday? I'm not sure what I'm gonna do Monday. I have some ideas though. I will post about it as soon as I can. Until then, have a great weekend. Be well, be kind to one another, make something cool. Fabio's competition right now is looking awesome. It's a fashion one, digital fashion. There's already some really, really cool images coming out. I can't wait to see more. Patrick's blew my mind. Absolutely stunning. I cannot wait to see what the whole field looks like. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check it out. And there's some cool mannequins that you can use as a base, like 20 of them. So guys, have a great weekend. We will talk to you on Monday. Until then, be well. If you enjoyed Paintover Friday and you would like me to paint over one of your images, shoot me an email, mike@droki.com. And if there's a specific thing you want me to be paying attention to, as opposed to just looking at an image and saying, well, this is what I would do, leave that in the email. Alrighty, guys. That was a really long wrap-up of things. What can you do? It's Friday. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Jafar, for sending in images. And we will see you Monday. Be well. Take care of one another. I've already said that. I've said that at least once, if not twice already. But I do mean it. I hope you're all well. Cheers, guys. Peace.